All right, so welcome everyone to our leadership mindset webinar. And the whole focus today is how do you actually turn crisis into recovery? And how do you use this amazing tool that we all have access to, our mindset, something that we can actually make a choice around and have control around? What are productive mindsets? What are unproductive mindsets? How can we make those pivots when we need to, when we're leading our teams, whether it's our company or business unit? It could just be ourselves in our own lives with our families and our community. And so mindset is such an important capacity and skill set that we can actually cultivate and grow and shift. And so there's never been a more important time to look at how to do that than right now in times of crisis and in times of chaos. So before we go any further, I just want to do some introductions here. And so I'm Rick Snyder. I am CEO of Invisible Edge, author of Decisive Intuition. And one of my passions is helping people shift their mindset so that they can actually reach their potential, overcome their obstacles, and look at discovering new tools that they didn't know they had that actually serve their decisions, their actions in the world, and ones that are in alignment with their purpose and their highest good, and for those around them as well. So before I go any further, I want to introduce a couple of our speakers and presenters today. Let's start with you, Stephen, if you just want to say a few words about what has you here today.
Sure. Thanks, Rick. I'm Stephen Sloan. I'm the founder of the Humane Leadership Institute and author and consultant to leaders to figure out how to be more effective and more humane with themselves and with their people at the same time. So, Rebecca?
Thank you. Hi, my name's Rebecca Watson, and I'm the CEO of Brompton Associates, which is a company for coaching and training leaders, helping leaders integrate the mind with the body and the soul. So this is very close to my heart, and a time when I think leaders not only need support, but have a chance to really step up and show what you're made of. So it's great to be here. Thank you.
And Susan, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Susan Steele. I am the Dean of Intuition University. So helping get all of our courses online and ready for you to take. And I am helping out with Q&A today.
Great. Thank you all so much. So let's dive right in. Mindset. So I love this image right here, this person just staring out into the galaxy. And it just has me think about, how we all see and experience our world is going to be completely based on our mindset and our frame and how we make meaning out of things. They say human beings are meaning-making machines, that we all are going to perceive things in our own unique way. So you and I can look at the same business situation and see it in completely different ways. Some people, for example, they see a crisis and they go right to worst case scenario and doom and gloom, and we're all screwed. And that could be one mindset it could be your default mindset, for example. While other people might see the exact same situation and look at the opportunities and look at, hey, how can we pivot our business right now to meet the changing needs of our customers in what they actually need right now, which might be a little bit different than our normal services or our normal products. How do we really adapt in the moment, on the fly, and really use that innovative mindset and that leadership mindset to really be on that cutting edge? So for me, this is why this conversation is so relevant today and so powerful, because having some self-sovereignty and control of our mindset is one of the few things we can actually have a choice around, especially when there's so much going on around us that we don't have control over. We don't have control over the whole coronavirus and how it's affecting the economy and how it's affecting health and resources and how it's affecting our family and relatives and communities. There's so much unknown and uncertainty that really being clear about the mindset that we're choosing and the mindset that's going to be most helpful and productive is of paramount importance in this day and age. So even just for a moment, when I bring up this image, what's the first thing that occurs to you? When you see this image of a market, a grocery store, and the shelves are empty. And if anyone had this experience in the first few days of coronavirus, I know I did. Just even chat in here in the Q&A section in the chat box. What are some of the initial emotions or feelings that you have when you first see this image? Feel free to type in and share if you want to add anything in the Q&A. If you remember back to when this first thing hit, you walked into the grocery store and you saw the empty shelves. In fact, for some people, this still might be occurring. So Linda says, I can no longer waste things like I've been doing. Yeah, that's right. This is one of the biggest, thank you, Linda. This is one of the biggest comments from business leaders and people that I'm seeing is right away, this whole situation puts into perspective what's actually important, what's actually meaningful. Of all the activities that I do every day, which of those am I just kind of going through the motions versus what are my real priorities and how have those changed all overnight, literally? That's a very common one. Anyone else, your first reaction? Let's see, we have shocked. Yeah, so Sanjeev, thank you. Human greed. Yep, so all the hoarding that's going on. And so this is interesting, right? And that's the first thing I thought of actually when I saw this in the grocery store in my area in San Diego. First thing I thought of was zombie apocalypse. I think I've seen too many of those movies and TV shows. And I was like, this doesn't end well. I've seen this show. And so it's this idea that, all of a sudden the world has changed. And immediately, what do human beings do? We go back to that survival mindset. We go back to that, there's not enough. I need to take care of myself or my family. And of course, some of that is natural. We're hardwired to survive. The problem is if we stay in that mindset for too long, it destroys our immune system. It creates more cortisol and stress in our system and wears away at our organs and our tissue. And it really is just terrible for our health, which is the very thing we're needing to double down on right now is the strength of our health. And so that's a huge catastrophe. And then also, we don't have access to our creative thinking. We don't have access to our neocortex and our intuition and our innovation if we're stuck in a survival mindset. And so I just want to introduce here, there's really two pandemics. There is the virus that we all know about, and it's creating, real damage, real devastation, real harm. And there's a level of pandemic. There's also another pandemic going on, which I call the fear pandemic. And there's a lot of fear, especially in the media right now, being spun every day, every hour, every minute. It's all the worst case stories that are going on and, different inflated statistics and all things that are happening around the world where we're being subjected to the bad news. And so it's a really important time to look at how do I gain control of my mindset where I'm still tapped into what's happening in the world, but I'm also being conscious about how do I have a diet around the news cycles? How do I unplug for my own health? How do I balance out what I need to focus on as a leader and what I do have control over the things that are outside my control? How do I find that balance? I think it's a really important question because there is a lot of collective fear right now. And so how much do I let that rule my decision-making and impact me versus I'm staying clear and true to my core values and clear and true to my vision, and also listening with my intuition on the changing needs of my customers, of my employees, of my team, etc. So this is really important is, yes, there's a real virus that has real ramifications, and there's this whole other area of extra suffering that we don't have to welcome. We don't have to entertain. So how do we get more skillful at learning how to tune in the information we need and be discerning about what's actually not helpful? And that's really going back to this whole topic today is how do we really learn how to cultivate that leadership mindset? And just as this woman in the image here, it's that ability to recenter, to gain that calmness, to refocus, to reshift our priorities. We have to be willing to take a breath and slow down and put ourselves in timeout for a moment just so we can recollect what's going on. and reconnect with our inner experience. If I'm agitated and coming from emotional reactivity, I don't trust my decisions from that place. I'm going to be making decisions out of stress, out of fear, out of over urgency, and I'm not going to be seeing things as clearly. And so if I just take a few moments to calm myself down and to center my nervous system and to take a few deep breaths, then I'm going to be in a lot more of a stable place to invite a different conversation, to invite a different mindset, and start to open up to information. Because if I'm just flooded with anxiety and all the news sources, I start to shut down and I'm not open to any more information anymore. So I have to literally create that space inside of me as a leader so that I can actually be more discerning of what information I let in. So a leadership mindset to me is a mindset that's flexible. It's adaptable. It's being present in the moment so I can shift and tune in as the needs of my environment dictate. Because my customer might need something today and they might need something very different tomorrow. I have an executive leadership team that I'm working with where it's on such a big level, their whole factory operation and even like governance laws by the state around coronavirus and all these things that they're not in control of can they stay open? When can they reopen? They're getting new information basically every hour. And so imagine with your leadership mindset, you're getting this new information that could be completely different every hour. How do you hold that and then relay that with your team? And what do you share with them? What do you not share with them? What's going to be helpful and beneficial? What's not going to be helpful? So these are the key intuitions you need to listen to in these critical moments right now. And so I want to invite you to look at this chart here and try to locate yourself. Here's what my sense is that for the most part, we've all been operating before coronavirus in some sort of comfort zone where we're just kind of going business as usual. We have our profit margins we're trying to achieve and everything's forecasted and we're trying to be as predictable as we can in our business. But if we're too comfortable, we start to fall asleep at the wheel. We don't tune into the needs of the moment. We get sometimes disengaged at work. And if you know your company culture and your staff, this is a good mirror for you. If you see disengagement on your team, people are not feeling that level of creativity and excitement. It's just kind of clocking the day, 9 to 5. But what happened is we went from a comfort zone of some sort right away to panic zone. And with the whole coronavirus as of a month ago or so. So panic zone is literally when we are in that amygdala hijack moment where our reptilian brain kicks in and we're just in that fight, flight, or freeze response. And the problem is we stop taking in information. We go right back to that survival mentality. And it's really hard to access our intuition and our creativity when we're in a freeze response or a panic response. And what I see is in a leadership mindset, it's our jobs to the best that we can. How do we keep our team and our culture and ourselves in that sweet spot in the middle, this learning zone? Because the learning zone is still uncomfortable. It's not what we know every day. It's not where we fall asleep behind the wheel and we're just going through the motions. The learning zone is where we're learning new things. We're trying to tweak our services or products in a different way. We're trying different copy. We're sensing the needs in a new way. We're taking in new information and new data, and we're actually doing something with it. We're experimenting. So that's the difference here is this is where we're accessing our intuition. This is where we're accessing our creative facility. And we're not too far out. We're in panic. We're in that sweet spot. So I want to do an anonymous poll right now. And I want to just see, where are you located on the 3 zones here? So this is anonymous, but if you wouldn't mind just adding to the poll right now, what zone do you feel like you're currently in? Are you in that comfort zone? Are you in that learning zone or that panic zone? And as honest as you can be is appreciated, because the more you can locate where you are, the more you can then make a plan to shift to a more advantageous place. Okay. And so there might be more coming. I'm just gonna, in sake of time, I'll just share the results here. So here's the results. We had our first 10 people respond, and there's more coming. That's fine. Interesting. No one's in their comfort zone. I'm actually not too surprised because I think the whole planet is not in a comfort zone right now. So that's interesting data. Most people are actually in the learning zone, which is great. A couple people in the panic zone, which is also understandable. And in this rest of this webinar, we're going to be looking at how do we get you from that panic zone mindset and experience to more of that sweet spot learning zone experience. And if you're already there, we're going to be giving you some real tools and practices on how to strengthen your resolve to be in that sweet spot. But then also, how can you share that with your team? How can you help your team really stay in that learning zone space where they're not going too far out of their comfort, but they're also not just going to their default ways of being? So this is actually, really good information here that a lot of you are finding that sweet spot. And that makes sense too. I think we were in a state of panic the first few weeks. And now I feel like the degree of intensity has gone down a little bit now that we're getting used to this quarantine life, and remote working with remote teams also is getting a little more navigatable in some way. Okay. So that's really what I want to get to here. Is these are really the three things we can control. These are really the only three things we can control if you think about it. You have control over your mindset and your perspective. And once again, your mindset comes from your childhood conditioning. When you were younger, you were taught who you could be and what was good, what was not good, what was valued and not valued. We're so imprinted by our parents' mindset and our cultural mindset and religious mindset that a lot of those beliefs and values get imprinted on us at such a young age that it actually takes a lot of conscious work to deprogram some of those to come up with our own mindset. So it is something that you can change. You can actually change your perspective. If I notice that my inner critic sees things as doom and gloom, and right away, if I see any sign of adversity, I go to panic, or I go to, hey, this isn't going to work, then that's going to create a series of decisions and actions that are limited by my mindset. Same is true if I have a different perspective that, once again, with adversity, there is opportunity. And actually, I'm looking for the opportunities right now. That's a whole different mindset. That means I'm actually going to see different data points than I would have seen before with the old mindset. So we can make a choice to look at, okay, yes, this is difficult. Yes, this really sucks. And this is painful. And what are the opportunities and the hidden benefits that maybe I'm not looking at first glance? And how can I have that conversation with my team, with my staff, with my trusted advisors, to really start to see some of the hidden benefits that I might be missing? And so how can I control and shift my mindset, which will then also change the decisions that I make and the actions that I take? And that's why leadership mindset is so important, because it's upstream of our decisions and our actions. It's so back here, we don't even see it. And yet we can choose a different mindset. And we're going to spend the rest of this webinar looking at that more intensely. So I'm going to hand it over to Stephen Sloan, and he's going to be guiding us through a very powerful exercise in how do we start to work with our mindsets, uncover what they are, and discover more productive patterns for ourselves.
Thank you, Rick. Hi, everybody. Thanks for this moment. And yeah, I'd like to go a couple levels deeper here and get very practical about how do we make this happen? How do we shift our mindset? How do we deal with this world that is cracked, right? And just a note on the drawings. I did these drawings, and it lets my imagination speak directly into you. And so a little unorthodox, but I appreciate your patience with them. So here we have the world, and it's cracked in a variety of ways, right? So we've got our assumptions about our work environment, about demand for our products, about our teams have all shifted. Our models that used to work for modeling how to set up a work day, how to forecast our sales, etc., all of that has broken and cracked and fallen around us. But also the structures of our, kind of the social arrangements of our work have shifted as well. You notice, you see people broadcasting from their own basements. You see musical performers performing in their own kitchen and recording themselves with their iPhones. So much pretense and so much hierarchy has been shifted and cracked. And in the cracks of what was, we can find opportunity. But only if we're landed in ourselves, as Rick said. So interestingly, an interesting post came to me this morning about John D. Rockefeller, one of the great robber barons of the 19th century. And when he was a young man in 1857, there was a huge financial panic. And in that panic, he remained calm. And he kept the mindset of, oh, everybody else's panic is my opportunity. And so the things that you thought were impossible, even a few weeks ago now, suddenly may be possible. And this is a moment, if we can take a breath and look and really get clear about what's going on, what might be true today, we might be able to move things along that we didn't think we could do before. So this crisis really is an opening. So, but how do we do this, right? How do we turn fear into a learning, right? How do we turn strong emotion, whether it's fear or sadness or anger, into learning? Rick, I think we have a next slide has an arrow on it. Is that the next slide? Let's go to the next one. Okay, yeah. So, so any strong emotion, whether it's panic, fear, whatever, or even anger at people's greed, is an indicator of something that's being protected. So, if somebody attacks you, you will protect yourself. And so every emotion, strong emotion that we're feeling, we can trace back to its source in a value that might be violated. So this is an interesting moment to think about what is the strong emotion you felt in the last few weeks. And let's put some of those into the chat box so we can share those. For me, I've definitely had some fear around how do I meet my responsibilities. Does anybody else have a strong emotion that they've felt in the last few weeks? Yeah. Sadness. Okay, so well, let's just use okay, grief, concern for clients. So yeah, let's dig into grief. I think that's a good one. So if we trace it back, if we say, well, what are we worried about losing if we are experiencing grief? Where does that come from? Why are we experiencing grief? Well, we're worried that these people that we care about, our clients maybe, are going to lose something. We're going to lose our relationship with them, or they're going to lose their stability and their situation. Does that sound accurate? Does that make sense? That we're coming down, if we look underneath grief, that we're looking at possibly the loss of something that we value very highly. That might be stability, that might be predictability, it might be relationship. Right, so does that make sense? So it's a little bit, this is an interesting format. I'm very conversational generally as I'm teaching. Yeah, so okay, yes, good, thank you. So, and for me, if I felt I felt some fear around being able to meet my obligations to my children, you know, and to my clients, etc., my landlords, um, you know, so if I go back, if I trace that back down to a value that's being violated, I have a value on being responsible, but being strong, being able to be fair with people. So this kind of takes me down into what we call the humane leadership values, which are fair strength, and you can try these on for yourself and see if these might be underneath some of the strong emotions that you've been feeling. So we start with fair strength. We don't want to be just strong and mighty and push people around. We want to be fair in our strength. And fair has two meanings, right? The fair is in just, but we also, it means beautiful. Because sometimes it's with great athletes and ballerinas and people like that, who their strength is actually elegant and beautiful. And great leaders are that way as well. So fair strength. Then we have generative care, which is we have a strong value that we as leaders care about those around us and care about them not in a coddling way, but in a way that lets them expand into their full potential and their full humanity, right? Not just a brain on a stick, but a fully integrated human who has things that they care about deeply and they have a body that's healthy and strong. And then finally is wise balance. Because you can have fair strength, you can have generative care, but the wisdom of the balance that you bring to those things moment by moment in your leadership and in your own life is really, I think, where the magic comes in. And there's so much to be learned in balancing these things. So, but how do we think about this in this time when we are so disoriented, right? A lot of our strong emotions are coming because we are disoriented. All the structures that we used to have are broken. And suddenly we're standing with all of this data, all this news coming at us and all kinds of uncertainty. And we don't even know when we're going to go back to work. And we're suddenly out of our office and out of our social networks and we're disoriented. But so how do we reorient ourselves? So I like to, in these moments, look for models that come from disciplines where it really, really matters. And the OODA loop is a very, very interesting tool that was developed by a fighter pilot, where being disoriented as a fighter pilot is a really bad idea, right? So a guy named Colonel John Boyd came up with this model of OODA loops. So basically the idea is, if we start in the middle here, where the world, we're in the world, and we get sense data from the world. That's all of our senses, right? Even our intuition, but you know, sight, sound, all of that. Then so we observe all those things. Then we orient that, we take all of that in and we orient it through our concepts of the world and our models and our evaluation, right? We use our concepts and our models to evaluate things. And the evaluation may be, hey, that was great, or, ooh, that was really not good, right? Either we complete a dopamine loop where we anticipated something great happened and it happened, or we get cortisol and say, ooh, that did not go as I wanted. Then that feeds into the next step, which is deciding, right? So we have thoughts, we have our imaginations, we say, well, maybe this is the way to go, and we choose a direction. Then once we make that decision, we take an action, right? Throw the switch over to option A, and we take that action out in the world. It brings us down back into the center. And then as soon as we do something in the world, we know as soon as there's an action, there's a reaction. And we start on this lower OODA loop, which is down into more sense data down towards the bottom. We have another set of sense data based on what we just did. So, and then we'll orient using our models, we'll make some decisions and we'll act again. So in this model of the OODA loop, we have a couple of places, we have a lot of control, actually. We can control what we observe. So for instance, we can reduce the amount of kind of news that we take in, the sensational news, and increase the amount of actual data. So as soon as I'm kind of a news junkie, and as soon as the coronavirus thing started happening, I went out to find those sites that had real data, like the Johns Hopkins counts of by country what's going on, like the healthdata.org at University of Washington, where they have real data, county by county, throughout the country. And then I also looked at, for instance, you can look at doctors making reports into the New England Journal of Medicine, who's opened up their site so that we can read actual doctors reporting on what they're seeing with various cases of COVID-19. So I like to go straight and find the most pure sense of sources of data that I can find. Then I want to orient, and I want to make sure that I understand the concepts that are involved, like how does antibody testing work? How do antibodies work, right? Et cetera, and then find models. My two secret sources for models are McKinsey has some of the best thinkers in the world looking at these various questions, and they have some very interesting models that they've put out in terms of when we're going to open up the country and how. And then the other one is just on Google Scholar. If you do a Google search, your normal Google search, but use Google Scholar as your way in, you'll cut out all of the stuff off of CNN and whatever other news channel, but you will have academics looking at whatever the topic is that you want. And if usually you can see by the number of citations which model is generally accepted as really high quality. So as leaders, we need to be the ones expanding our sources of data, getting more data, more cleanly, more purely, and then using new models to evaluate that data. And then, of course, we move into the world of decision, right? And that really has to do with, as a leader, becoming much better at hosting group deliberation. When we're seeking for the truth, there is no, the highest paid person in the room has the best idea. That has to go out. And you need to listen to everyone to see who might have the insight, might have that piece of data, or might have that insightful model that will allow you to come to a better group decision. And then we need to develop as leaders our understanding and our capability at critical thinking. And that's a lifelong exercise to develop our critical thinking. But there's a lot of great resources online to do that, to help you with that. And then, of course, leaders are the ones who take the decision and say, okay, we just decided to do A, let's go. Everybody, Bob, you go do this, Darlene, you do that, and here we go. And you make it real in the world. One of the most disempowering things to do is to come up with an intention or a decision and then not act on it, or hesitate, or talk yourself out of it, or whatever. This is where great leadership happens, right? You make your decision and then you move to action. The question is, are you then completing the lower loop where your action is actually an experiment? And we hold the mindset of learning has to do with everything is an experiment. And as soon as we take an action, that's an experiment. And then we move into the realm of experience, where we want to understand what exactly is the result of our experiment. And then we go back into experimental mode, just as a scientist does, and says, is my data accurate? Is my model correct? How can I revise it? How can I do another experiment to come closer to the truth next time? So with this model and this very clear way of looking at it, we can really begin to upgrade our ability to orient ourselves and to get into that mindset of learning. So but to be there, we need to be in a mindset that is one of calm and clarity. And that is what our friend Rebecca Watson will tell us about next.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I wanted to take this section to allow you to bring something experiential, so something that's really real for you right now. So before we go into that, I just want to share with you that actually the mindset that we have, we can control, but actually also if we do control our thoughts, those thoughts will actually affect our physical health. So if we are running thoughts that are generating fear for us, then we will be also unconsciously lowering our immune systems. And so stress on the nervous system as well is something that right now for me is a major one. So for me, working with leaders, I'm looking at helping them actually connect to the body and ground the body and calm the body. From there, we can think more clearly. So first off, I wanted just to say that the focus of my session will be about the thoughts that you're running and the effects that that has on your body. So if there's something, if you've got pen and paper there, or you can just jot down, what for you right now is something that's causing you worry, something that's causing you stress or anxiety. Worrying about your own job, money, whatever it is. It might be keeping the kids entertained. We've got whole lives going on. So just jot down, what is it that's on my mind right now that when I run it, it's causing me some anxiety? And of course, you know, most of the people it's great to see are in that learning zone, and that's not a surprise because you've taken this time to come on this webinar, so you already have this mindset. But also, even in this learning zone, there's still anxiety, there's still things, maybe, you know, I need to learn how to do this and I don't know how to do that. So just jot down everything that comes to mind. And then just pick for you, and maybe let your intuition guide you with this, the one thing that is causing the most churn, the most worry. It might not even be the one that makes sense to worry about the most, but it's the one that's actually causing the biggest anxiety for you. I mean, I have a client who was worried that they weren't sleeping well enough. And because they were so worried that they couldn't sleep, then they couldn't sleep. So, you know, it doesn't even have to be logical. We're not very logical, us humans. So now that you've picked one thing to work on, I just want you to write down, and I'll give you a few minutes to do this, to record literally the thoughts that you're running about this topic. So literally a stream of consciousness. My client with the worrying I can't sleep was like, if I can't sleep, then I won't be able to perform. And then at this time in work, I need to be at my highest performance, and it went on and on. So just let that stream of thinking come out. And when we start this exercise, we realize how crazy we are and how long we can go on with the stream of thoughts. So whatever you've got down on the page now, let's capture that. And now just draw an arrow from those thoughts to how it's actually making you feel in your body. So we might use the word worried or concerned or confused, overwhelmed, but actually maybe close your eyes and connect in with the body. Put a hand on your heart and a hand on the stomach, on your gut, and just see what is happening in your body right now. Is your heart faster? Are you breathing from high up? Are your shoulders raised? What's the physicality that these thoughts are causing you? And maybe if there's one or two main signals from the body, out of 10, if you can say, I'm getting this feeling out of 10, I'm feeling overwhelmed, 10 out of 10 right now, or I'm feeling anxious, 3 out of 10. And just put a figure to it. And then what I want to do is to give you 2 different exercises. And there's many, many, but this is just in this time that we've got available. And one might work better for you than the other. So I'm just giving options here. But these 2 exercises to do, to then come back and use some creative thinking to see if there's other things that you could choose to think about this topic that are also true. So we don't look at the thoughts that you have and say they're wrong. We just try and create what I call a new thought box. We need some creativity for this, but hold on, we don't need to do it right now. First, we're going to actually do some exercises in order to literally change our mindsets. So wherever you're sat, if you can just have your feet flat on the floor, if you've got heels on, ladies or gents, take those off. So feet are really flat and grounded on the floor. Sit with a straight spine. Have your hands, your palms facing downwards on your thighs. So what we've done is we've opened all of the energy in the body. We've not crossed anything. And just allow your spine to be very straight. Maybe tip your head slightly down so we can get a nice straight spine at the back of the neck. And close your eyes and just take in a deep breath through the nose and then out through the mouth, like a big sigh. And we'll just do 2 more in our own time. So in through the nose and out through the mouth. 1 more in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as we breathe out through the mouth, we're actually breathing out toxins from the body as well. So now just go back to your normal breathing in and out through the nose. And just notice if you struggle even to breathe in and out through the nose, then there is a resource. Come back to us after this webinar. There is a resource I've just thought of that I can give you for that. But hopefully it's fairly clear. You can breathe through the nose, keeping the eyes closed. A nice long spine. Maybe place a hand on the stomach so that you can check that your breath is coming all the way down into the stomach. Because when we run thoughts about something that can make us overwhelmed or anxious or sad, our breathing can shift to just breathing from the chest. So let's consciously bring the breath down into the belly. And just relax the muscles around your eyes. Relax your jaw, your tongue, your shoulders. Just notice how heavy you are sat in your chair. Notice the weight of your body. It has weight. Just notice your feet grounded on the floor. So this is a literal grounding exercise. Come back into the body. Notice the breath. Notice that we are all rooted by gravity to this earth. Just notice that you can bring your energy right down in the body. And we're just consciously relaxing the nervous system, opening our breathing, giving space to our organs, taking our mind off the external world, just placing some focus of attention inside. Just knowing that all we have to do is breathe, relax, and the wisdom of the body will do everything else to keep us safe. The body already knows how to come back to healthy. It's just our minds that interrupt it. Our constant busyness in life that interrupts that natural healing. So from here, when you're ready, just opening your eyes, but keeping this really relaxed and grounded state. Just go back to the thing that was causing you some anxiety or an emotion you didn't want, and see if you can use some creative thinking to write on a clean page some thoughts that are also true that may lead you to feeling calmer. It may even just be the thought, this is out of my control. I might as well drop it. It may be the thought, if this happens, I'm sure I will handle it. So any thoughts that you could choose to run that would allow you to come back to a different feeling. You may still be anxious, but a bit less. And see what comes to you with that exercise. Again, when you read these thoughts, just draw an arrow and put how you feel. If it's the same feeling, just out of 10, how much? We can record, like use yourself as the experiment. If you can't get any shifts, if nothing comes, that's fine too. Because we're now going to do another exercise. And I want to leave you with both these options. You might find that this one, which is very different, is more useful for you. So again, staying in this seated position, closing the eyes, just relaxing back in the chair now. So really relaxing the whole body. Trying not to go to sleep, ideally. See if you can imagine in your mind's eye that you are drifting now out of your chair, drifting up out of your building and up into the sky. And it's pretty warm and comfortable here. And you can look down on the building that is your home. You can drift maybe further out. See more houses, more of the area where you live. And as you drift even further out, you can relax even more. And just drift up and up, further away, So now maybe you can see your whole town or city. Just notice how quiet and peaceful it is here. And if you like, you can drift further out. Now you're seeing a whole area of your country. You can no longer see individual buildings. You're drifting further and further and becoming more and more relaxed. And just drift out even as far as you can, see the whole of your country, maybe the whole of the side of the earth where the sun is currently shining. So now you're in space, peaceful, silent, and drift out so you can really just see the whole globe below you. And from here, just know that there's billions of people living out their lives, having billions of emotions, billions and trillions of thoughts. It's all going on right now down there. And there's all of the animals, the plants, the movement of the tides and the winds. Everything interlinked. This breathing, living planet. And just see as well, almost back in time, all of the other people that have come before us. And we can't possibly imagine it all playing out. It's so complex, so vast. But just have a feeling of this perspective of history. This planet has been turning. The sun has been rising. For all of this time. Vast history, even the history of the human race. And it will continue to do so. And more people will come after us. Just get a sense of that perspective. Now just relaxing down, coming further back towards the earth. Just drift pleasantly back through the sky, back over your town, back into your home. Taking a few breaths back into your body. In this one moment, and then opening your eyes, think of that problem and write down any other new thoughts that are also true, that could, if you chose to run these thoughts, lead you to a more resourceful place, whatever that is for you. So we've got these two different exercises Very different. One is grounding and connecting in the body. The other is actually the opposite and drifting out into space and getting perspective. Maybe you can notice that one has worked better for you than the other. Maybe both worked. Hopefully one or other did. You've got some new thoughts that you can run about this one topic that is causing you or was causing the most stress. And out of this webinar, if you want to choose to run either of these exercises or both of them for any of the other things on your list, and literally rewrite the thoughts that you would like to run. And it's just building a habit. The old thoughts will come in, and then you can pick up this new thought box. I actually put a box around these thoughts so that I can quickly access them, and I can read these new thoughts. I can breathe and ground, and suddenly I've actually shifted my mindset within those minutes. So hopefully that has been useful. And with that, I'm passing back to Rick. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Stephen. And just to recap, Stephen and Rebecca have just offered some really powerful tools right now in ways that we can strengthen our mindset and also interrupt some of the habits and patterns that are not helpful when we're starting to spin mentally. And so I love those two exercises, Rebecca, about in one way coming more into our body and less out of our spin in our head, and taking a few breaths and getting recentered and having a different perspective from that place. Or a guided visualization like she just offered us, where we get to go meta to our experience and go further out and see the bigger picture, not just when we're locked into the problem. And so I really appreciate those. And Stephen's tool around the OODA loop, just as a reminder, if you ever want to see this on the replay, I highly recommend that, in a real way to look at how do I get clear about the data I'm taking in, what am I observing, how do I make better decisions and actions and experiment from that loop and keep refining what I learn. It's a very practical tool for all leaders out there. So as we're wrapping up, I just want to share some resources that we do have available for you if you want to go deeper in building your leadership mindset and for that of your team. So a lot of you know my book, Decisive Intuition, and if you don't, it's out wherever books are sold. And with all the noise out there in the space, I've never ever seen a time more relevant and meaningful to tap into our inner resources and our inner guidance, along with the outer data, but to be able to discern and sift through what's important and how do we intuit what needs to happen next. So you can find Decisive Intuition wherever they sell books near you. And then Humane Leadership is Stephen's brand new book that's just coming out now. And it's an incredible book about, how do we really bring the humanity back to leadership, which in some ways, we're getting to see the exposure of poor leadership around the world right now in many ways. We're also seeing examples of incredible humane leadership by a lot of companies that are pivoting fast and coming together in new ways. And so this book, I'm going to send you the link for all of these in a resource page that's going to be a follow-up to this webinar. We're also offering 50% off on Intuition University courses. So all of our courses are half off. If you could just go to intuition-university.com, you'll see great courses on intuitive leadership, intuitive sales, innovation track of how do you actually facilitate innovation for you and your teams, as well as how do you build your intuition for better decision-making in these times. And so all of our material, if you use that discount code COVID50, you'll get 50% off for you and anyone on your teams as well. Lastly, if you want to go deeper in any of this work around your mindset, around leading in times of chaos, around managing your remote teams effectively, and a host of other topics that are really timely for you right now, come inquire. You can check with us here on info@invisible-edgellc.com. And we offer remote coaching, remote training, online courses to really build your leadership skills, your empowerment, and getting your team ready to pivot on a moment's notice and really collaborate and come together more than ever. So I want to thank my fellow co-leaders here. Rebecca and Stephen, you are amazing. I'm so glad you're on the team. And Susan and Denise in the background helping with Q&A and organization and making this all happen logistically. So thank you all for tuning in and making time out of your day to be part of this conversation. And so please take these tools and practices to heart, put them into practice, and see what you discover. And we're looking forward to continuing our own dialogue and conversation in any way we can support your work out there. So thank you. Have a blessed day, and keep working on that beautiful leadership mindset. Over and out. Goodbye, everyone.